So Stephanie White is a breath of fresh air for anyone who has been following the Indiana Fever. Because, like, look, at the end of the day, she could be good, she could be bad. You never know how a coach is going to be until they actually coach. No guarantee she's going to be this coach to, like, save everything. But you want to know one thing that I will be pretty confident about? Honestly, what I'm very, very confident about when it comes to Stephanie White. And she knows the sport of basketball. So, if you guys have been listening to me, if you guys have been listening to me, what some of my theories like about the Fever is, where it's like, people talking about Stephanie White, it's like, oh, she's going to turn X, Y, and Z player into a good defender. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like in sports, as a defender, it does not, it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to basically be a team defensive coach. If you've got bad defensive players, you can be a team defender. That's why people are like, oh, you know, Caitlin Clark's a one-way offensive player, but like Raven Johnson's a one-way defensive player, they're equally as good. It's like, that's a flawed understanding of basketball. Like, if you can lead an individual team, first of all, good offense always beats good defense. And second of all, you can be bad individual defenders but be good team defenders and have good defensive systems and have good defensive schemes. And that's a big thing. And that's a big thing with sports. And that's the only thing with the Fever is that it's all about, for me, it's all about turning them into a mediocre defensive team. You're not going to turn Caitlin Clark into a lockdown defender. Even Lexi Hull's not a lockdown defender. She's a disruptive defender. You're not going to turn Kelsey Mitchell into a lockdown defender. You're not going to turn some players like Nilla Smith into a lockdown defender. I think Nilla Smith is just I don't think she processes the game fast enough on either end of the floor to be a defender. But this is what Stephanie White has said about the team's defense. And this is so important. Like, from Christie's sides to like an actual good basketball take, it's crazy. It is actually crazy.
Great on defense. So let's talk about defense for a second. What does this, and again, I know you all will add players. The roster construct is by no means finished, but being better on defense, how does that start? How do you teach that to this team?
Well, I think first and foremost, we lay the level of expectation. Like, you're going to be expected to defend if you want to be on the floor. And
obviously, that it goes to everybody to an extent, where it's like you have to try on defense, but like there's a difference between going and defending and like being locked and defended. They're two very different things. They're two very, very different things. And man, I need a better backup camera than this. Yeah, it's not the ideal situation. Not the worst situation is camera, but I need a better backup camera.
And it's not about being an elite one-on-one defender. It's about being a great team defensive team. And for us, that's going to start with ball pressure. It's going to start with execution of coverages, multiple coverages. You know, not just one or two. We've got to be able to keep teams off balance.
Oh my God! Literally, how to defend with how you can survive with bad defenders. Pressure the ball and know how you rotate, and pressure the ball, play hard, scramble, and know how to rotate. You can have bad individual defense by staying in front of their man, but if you've got athletes out there, they're at least going to be able to scramble, they're going to be disruptive, and that is one of the ways that you can make a bad defensive team play what appears to be good defense. That's one thing. And then, obviously, she's just talking about the defense here, and it's exactly what the Fever need. Like, you don't reinvent the wheel. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, all of these players are going to they're gonna be just, oh, they need to be better defenders, or you need better individual defenders. It's like maybe after a year or two, they might need better individual defenders, but like, you need one good perimeter defender, you need one good wing defender, or sorry, not wing defender, interior defender. And you need three players that rotate well, that play somewhat hard in the defensive end. Or even if you are Caitlin Clark, who's probably not going to, or Kelsey Mitchell, who doesn't want to use your effort on defense, who at least communicate well and are positionally sound on defense. That's all you need if you're this team.
You know, multiple levels of effort on that end of the floor, a commitment to just being solid, to forcing teams to take the shots that we want them to take, for forcing players to take the shots that we want them to take, and playing.
Thank you! Thank you. Again, the reason why I need a new camera is, for some reason, I cannot turn off the auto zoom on my camera. I don't know what's going wrong with it. But Thank you. Like, we have watched this team leave Taurasi open for three and run Natasha Mack off the 3-point line. I've seen this team, like, leave Sabrina, like, it's what, a 4-point game or something with a minute and a half to go, and they left Sabrina Ionescu so that they could guard, I think, was it Kennedy Burke or something for three? Oh, no, sorry, it was Stewie. They ran off Stewie to guard Sabrina Ionescu, and I'm like, or say they ran off Stewie and left Sabrina open, and I'm like, Stewie is shooting 25% from three. Sabrina Ionescu is Sabrina Ionescu. Like, just make smarter decisions. And that's the thing. When you've got a coach that's actually going to have a scout report, that's actually going to have a defensive philosophy that's not, we're going to leave them open and pray they miss. Like, that's defensive strategy and defensive philosophy is more than we need to hold this team under X amount of points. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's the final goal. And like what good coaches are going to do is, they're going to evaluate the entire game. They're going to evaluate the other team. And if your target is, if you want to go analytic and you want to set a target of this team needs to score X amount of points or needs to score under X amount of points, you got to look at how you do it. You got to look at who you want taking more shots. You got to look at what shots you're going to give to what players, because players in the WNBA are good enough. Just like we saw when Christy Side's tactic to guard everybody is guard them straight up. No one was forced. They never forced anyone baseline. Against the Mystics, they allowed Ariel Atkins to drive left and shoot a pull-up off her left hand every single time. No forcing right. No forcing Aja Wilson right. They literally they played every single player on defense the same way. They faced up on everybody. They defended every screen just the same way. And it was just YOLO. It was just wing it. And Chrissy Sides, who people talk about the worst, or is a defense coach, as bad as Christy Sides was as an offensive coach, she was the worst defensive coach in the history of basketball. And you've at least, Stephanie White has at least shown, even, like, look, I don't think Stephanie White is this, like, is a Cheryl Reed level coach. I don't think she's the new Greg Popovich. I don't think Stephanie White is this, like, fantastic super coach that's going to turn this team into the best defensive team in the W. I don't think she's a miracle worker. She's not a miracle worker. But what Stephanie White has shown through every one of her interviews is she fundamentally, like at like a fundamental level, she understands the sport of basketball. Like, regardless of philosophies, she understands the sport. And that is the biggest problem with Christy Sides. Christy Sides coached her, like, not nuances, like the little things with Christy Sides. Christy Sides coached, like, if you've ever, like in Europe, school basketball doesn't really matter. And sometimes schools don't hire coaches and they just have random teachers who have an interest in basketball. And they do really well because they've got a lot of really good players in their team. And the teachers, in fairness, they care. They'll look up YouTube tutorials to find a bunch of quick hitter plays and they'll put them in and they'll work in games. That's what Christy Sides is. Christy Sides is coaching like someone who just learned the sport of basketball and looked up YouTube tutorials and like read basketball books in the 80s being like, oh, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, if you hold the team under this amount of points, we win the games. It's like, well, no shit. But like, when your tactic to do that was we're going to leave them open and pray they miss. Like, of course you're going to, when teams just aren't hitting shots, you're going to win the games. And of course when teams are hitting shots, you have no chance. But yeah, thank God. Like, she actually understands basketball. We've come from Christy Sides to this. Fair play, Stephanie White. I don't even care if we lose a couple of games. Because I have some confidence. Because our coach actually understands the sport of basketball.